On today's Locked On Senators, back-to-back wins. We'll break down how the Sens were able to beat New Jersey and Edmonton over the weekend.
Unfortunately, it was a different outcome for the Belleville Senators as they drop back-to-back losses and they fall out of a playoff spot in their division.
We'll break down what the odds are. Are they really out of the race? And more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stutzle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 1009 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan in the sun in Scottsdale, Arizona, alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Sports, concerts, and more. If you got an event, go to Game Time, Locked On, for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Today is Monday, March 25th, and Pilsy, I'm so excited to talk about these wins. I forgot to let everyone know that they can also follow the show on social media at Sens Central, on Instagram, LockedOn.Senators. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where we say hello, let you know that a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Pilsy, the Senators won a game the way they've lost so many this season, by scoring on a few number of shots.
Yeah, it was crazy that the Ottawa Senators were able to beat the Edmonton Oilers last night when they only mustered 16 total shots, and they're able to score four of those at least on a goalie. So
four shots in the third period.
Yeah, the Ottawa Senators did not deserve to win this game. Classic Sens, the games they deserve to win, they flat out lose, and the games they don't deserve to win, they somehow find a way. But the goalie stats were flipped, essentially, for both matches up against Korpisalo versus Allen. Allen has terrible numbers. Korpisalo looked good. And then last night, Picard has a save percentage that is very Ottawa Senators-like at 0.733%, and Korpisalo was absolutely incredible. So it's a little bit of an unusual tactic by the Ottawa Senators, Ross, but they pull the move you've been hoping they would do eventually, back-to-back goalies in consecutive nights, and it worked out big time.
It certainly did. We'll get into that in the next segment. Jacques Martin saying the other guy just wasn't ready. We'll let you know what we think that means and more next on Locked On Senators. But I need to bask in a victory Monday because it's been so few and far between. Now, we've already covered over the last week or so, the Senators are going to enter the draft lottery between 4th and 7th. I'm pretty confident about that. It's a long way up to Seattle and Pittsburgh, the next two teams. I believe they're 7 or 8 points back of those two. And then the bottom three, I mean, good luck. You could lose almost every game the rest of the season and still be looking down at Anaheim, Chicago, and San Jose. So you're in this little foursome right now, and we'll see where it all shakes out for the Ottawa Senators. But right now, I mean, we want wins next Saturday in Winnipeg, the Tuesday in Minnesota, and the final home game of the season. But other than that, I mean, I just want to see good hockey. And last night we saw just that. We need to talk about Drake Batherson a bit because he's been, I think, an unsung hero this season. At least we haven't spoken about him on our show a whole lot. It's been more about what's gone wrong and not what's gone right. But Drake Batherson is now only 8 points away from getting a career high in points. He's got, I believe, 5 more goals until he sets a career high in goals. This guy, that saucer pass on the first goal, I don't know if he couldn't have landed that any better than he did.
Yeah, and then he decided, hey, it worked the first time, I'll just do it again. Another sauce pass to Chicky, and it results in another, where's Chicky? But yeah, Ross, Drake Batherson definitely has been good in his last 2 games. So this weekend, he's got 2 goals, 2 assists, and you mentioned he's an unsung hero, but the boys in the locker room don't feel that way, as he was the one given the fire helmet in last night's victory from Mark Kastelik. So you'll have to see that.
Also had the quote of the night where he said, he told the boys in the third period, he said, the ice looks pretty good down there if we want to go check out the offensive zone.
Yeah, that's an all-time quote. Like, hey, like, you guys notice the ice is real smooth down in their end? Like, we could be pulling off dekes like crazy here. Like, that's, Ross, we heard Drake Batherson tell us he decides whether to shoot or deke on a breakaway based on the ice conditions. So maybe that's why he was like, this is perfect ice to be saucing passes. And that's where he hits Chicky twice.
Shout out to the Senators, too, and in mostly Joonas Korpisalo, who made 33 saves in this game. He held Connor McDavid to only 2 assists and Leon Draisaitl to only 1 goal. Both players were -1 in this game. It was a special teams battle, though, between both sides. Ottawa going 3 for 4 on the power play and Edmonton going 2 for 3. So, I mean, you go 3 for 4 on the power play, Pillsy. I think that's going to set you up for success a lot of times. And it almost kind of adds to the intrigue of the fact that, well, actually, I was searching it because I was like, okay, well, they had to have had a lot of shots on the power play, right? Well, as our old teacher, John Shannon, pointed out, those power play goals came quickly on the man advantage. Ottawa scored, I believe, 7 seconds into their first man advantage, under 40 seconds into the second, and early again in the third. So they actually scored 3 goals on 3 shots on the power play. They didn't have a single one of their shots stopped with the man advantage.
That's incredible. And yeah, that's the thing, Ross. How many times do we see opponents' power play win the draw, set play, boom, goal in under 10 seconds? The Ottawa Senators did that twice with 2 of their power play goals were won right off the draw, and then quick puck movement, cycling, get to an open guy and bury it. So if they can, this is so classic Ottawa Senators, Ross. We're at our yearly cycle where the Ottawa Senators will now rip off an insanely hot streak that means nothing, will ruin their draft position, and has fans being like, do we believe in this team, or are they just able to win when there's literally zero pressure and other teams are not at that same level that they're at here?
Well, they should have been. The teams they played this weekend should have been desperate. New Jersey, we might have put the final nail in their coffin of any sort of playoff hope. And Edmonton, they're battling to try to get that first spot in the Pacific Division. So,
but that's what I mean, Ross. Maybe that's where it's a disadvantage. Those teams are playing for so much, they're gripping the stick so tight, they understand the consequences of this. Whereas Ottawa's just going out there and like, hey, let's try to add a couple extra cookies for our contracts, shine up the stats here, and keep her going and keep her going.
It feels that way, but look, the game on Sunday obviously wasn't sustainable, but it was nice to see goaltending win you a game. How often this year have we said that the Senators, even when the goaltending is decent to good, they still don't have the best goalie on the ice? On Sunday, they had the best goalie on the ice. They still allowed a goal in the first 5 shots, as is tradition, but they were able to battle back from that. The last point I want to make about this weekend, and I could get one from you as well, Tim Stutzle with 3 points yesterday, end-to-end goal, beautiful, 2 assists as well, secondary assist on the beautiful Drake Batherson pass to Chychrun that we already talked about. I mean, he had a 4-point weekend. He's up to 12 points in his last 10 games. We knew he was even cooking before that. He just couldn't serve it on the plate. He was kind of, leaving it on the gas stove, just waiting for someone else to put it home because he couldn't finish. But now it looks like it's all coming together for him. He's garnishing it and everything. I think right now we're seeing hopefully a sign of things to come for Tim Stutzle. I mean, the whole team, when you win 2 games, you're wondering how you can replicate this time in and time out. But it's good to see, at least we talk about how hard he is on himself. It's good to see Stutzle hopefully carry this through the rest of the season and not be, just down and low confidence all off season. He's got to go into the off season with confidence and video to back up that, hey, even when he's the number 1 target and teams are game planning for him, he can still come through and score goals.
Yeah, we know Timmy's a big iPad guy, so hopefully he has lots of iPad time for when he's eating dinner throughout the offseason and can look at all his highlight goals. And Ross, I couldn't believe it. Tim Stutzle on a 2-on-1 looked off the passer. He didn't force a pass too late or do an extra pass. He looked off the passer and shot the puck, and wouldn't you know it, it went in the net.
Hey, he didn't do a Dominic Kubalik pass on a 2-on-1? That was wild. Wild.
I wasn't gonna comment on that, but that's an immediate Take the bus to Belleville,
What do
Kubi.
we do? Hey, Belleville could use some help. That's a third segment.
Well,
I don't
maybe
know what happened.
we don't send Kubi down then.
I don't know what happened to
need
Belleville this weekend. We'll touch on that. Any final thoughts on the weekend, Pilsy? Because, look, winning is fun. Shout out to Dr. Chow. I thought that was a very well done ceremony. His kids were out there, dropped the puck. Connor McDavid, Brady Tkachuk. And then they get a win for him. The Sens seem to win these celebration games. They've
Not
won
all of them.
all three. Well, they get a point in all of them.
There you go. Yeah.
But they won the game where Wade Redden was into the Ring of Honor. I can't recall the Brian Murray one. I'm sure we'll get somebody in the comments that'll let us know that. And then the Chris Phillips one, they scored the 3 fastest goals in franchise history when they beat Buffalo. And then the Alfie one, they won that game as well.
Ooh, also, can people let us know if they won the Frank Finnegan retirement night?
They did, because it was opening night. They beat Montreal 3-2.
There we go. All right.
Shout out Neil Brady.
Love it. Yes, absolutely. Ross, people watching on YouTube, they can see that this is a away game for you. No, those are not the mountains and lush greenery of Winnipeg in the heart of on the edge of enemy territory there. So you were at Mullet Arena. You want to tell us about that? How'd that go for you?
I do after the break. We'll get into that. This is Locked On Senators. It is your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. And guys, Ross teased about his night last night, heading to an away game where the Ottawa Senators did not play. And I'm sure he got his tickets at Game Time.
Correct.
And Ross, you're going to another sporting event courtesy of going to Game Time as well. Why don't you tell the people all about that?
Yeah, so obviously when you're getting tickets, when you're somewhere else, you want to make sure that you get it. But I just kept looking at Game Time. And as I got closer to the event, the price kept going down and down. What was a $150 ticket, I ended up getting for $110. So you're feeling good about that. That's chicken fingers and fries right there with the difference. And then I'm going to do the same on Tuesday for a little spring training action. So go check it out at Game Time. You can always get the best price, the best deals. $20 off by using code Locked On. Great little extra discount. Again, you want a chili one at the game, you want a bite to eat, $20 can go a long way to helping that.
Yeah, and the thing is, Ross loves knowing where he's going to be sitting at the game. He doesn't just pick a random seat. He's got to see what it looks like. So you get the view. And if you've done it on the mobile app, when you're looking at the seat view, there you go. That's one hell of a view, although there's probably not a bad seat in the house at Mullet Arena. But on the mobile app, when you're looking at the view of your seat, you can turn your phone so you get the full 360 view of what that seat looks like. It's not just, hey, we're going to show you the prettiest view of it and that's it. No, not with Game Time. And you get all in prices, so you know your total up front, so you get a great deal. Buy your tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Boom, tickets on your phone. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase, just like Ross said. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Shawarma Palace, our happy place. It's Shawarma Palace. What started with one restaurant in Ottawa serving delicious Mediterranean cuisine, shawarma. It is Ottawa's most beloved dish, but there's only one place that elevates it to royal status. That is Shawarma Palace. So they started, I said, one store in 1997, and now you can never be too far away from a Shawarma Palace. They have 7 locations all across the city of Ottawa. They've got their central location right at Bank and Gladstone. You can find them in Orleans. You can find them. I'm so jealous of the Carleton University students who can legitimately just go right to the food court and get Shawarma Palace. You can also get it at my favorite location, the OG shop at Rideau Street, right by Chapel in Augusta. It's always delicious. It's always huge portions. Whether you get the sandwich or the platter, always bring an appetite when you head to Shawarma Palace. And let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. You can also have Shawarma Palace sent to you. They are exclusively available for delivery from Uber Eats. So if you want to eat like a royal, go eat at Shawarma Palace. Send us your photos on social media. We love seeing that tender chicken. We love seeing the hummus. We love seeing the garlic sauce on the roasted potatoes. We love it all at Shawarma Palace. So go eat like a royal today. Go eat at Shawarma Palace. All right, Pilsy. Here we are, a victory Monday after the Senators earned wins over Edmonton 5-3, the score, and even against New Jersey on Saturday, where the Senators earned a 5-2 win. So a 10-5 weekend victory on aggregate, but they couldn't get a whole lot of help on the out-of-town scoreboard when it came to the tank. I tried my best last night at Mullet Arena. It was an important game for both of the sides of the equation. I wanted Phoenix to win, for Ottawa to fall behind them, and I also wanted it so that Dallas wouldn't get points, so that the Jets don't end up being a third place team or a wild card team. But man, Mullet Arena, I was telling Rachel this as we left. I said, the first time, it's a complete what do you call it? Not nostalgia. What's the other one? Novelty. It was a complete novelty. You're like, what am I watching an NHL game in this arena? Last night, I was like, this is kind of sad. It's kind of sad.
Wow.
It's kind of sad.
Why?
And maybe a part of the first time was they're playing Edmonton, and it was over March break-esque too. So it's like all Oilers fans there. Seeing McDavid that close, you're like, okay, you can see the speed. I don't know, man. You're looking like the players almost look sad. Like they're used to playing in front of 18,000. There's like maybe 4,800 squeezed in there. I don't know. It's a really nice facility. I'm sure it's great for college hockey, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, a lot of those guys, especially some of the top tier guys, they were playing in bigger rinks when they were in college. Like lot of the college rinks are bigger. Junior rinks, some of them are bigger. Like
one of the guys did his rookie lap last night. And I was like,
that's tough at Mullet. Damn.
You get your rookie lap in the NHL, and it's at Mullet Arena.
Wasn't that Crooker's situation?
No, Vegas. He scored his first
right.
goal. Vegas is the opposite.
Honestly, that's crazy.
The opposite.
All right. Well, it's a small rink, Ross, but small rink, it means you're a little more intimate. You get to meet a lot more people.
Yep.
You got to meet a friend of the show.
Friend of the show. A couple, actually. I tapped Craig Morgan on the shoulder as well.
Oh, awesome. Nice.
He was telling us about Derek Stepan's big blade.
Yeah, that was going to change everything.
The blade that was going to change it all for the Senators rebuild. It didn't. However, we ran into Biz, funny enough, and the way it happened was hilarious. So he was there. I guess Barstool was doing some sort of event. We were on like the direct opposite end of the rink as them, but we were in line for a bite to eat, and up comes Biz flying through the door. He's got literally a coyote hat on his head. It's hilarious. And I was wearing my Sens hat, and he kind of gives me like a bit of an eyebrow look. So I went up. I was like, Biz, you got to stop talking smack about the Sens on Checklist. Yeah. And he goes, buddy, they're so pathetic. And I said, they might be.
Yeah.
But they're not as pathetic as telling me that the Oilers are going to beat them and then have it blow up in your face. And he kind of like looked. I was like, yeah, man, you came on the show a couple years ago. He goes, are you locked on Sens? So he knew right away that was solid. And I don't know how many beverages he's had. So I was even more impressed that he was able to remember. Credit to him. We took a picture, had a laugh about it. He asked me where Martian gets his information. I just had to tell him it's from the streets, whether you like it or not.
Merely a conduit of the streets.
So hilarious. We posted the photo on Twitter. Good guy. After we take the photo, he shakes Rachel's hand, asks about her, like that, classy guy. Nice. And it was great to see him. So awesome. You could tell sometimes, you know, these like personalities, you see them on TVs, on TNT, all that. When you see him in person, you can tell he's a fighter at the NHL level. He is an enormous human being.
Yeah. And I feel like fighters are always like the nicest guys too, right? Like they're on the ice, complete mutants, but off the ice, they're absolute gentlemen. So that's sweet. You got to meet and chat with Biz. We got to get him back on the show in the office.
Yeah. I'd say we're overdue. We'll wait until his yearly come around on the Sens where he's like, oh yeah, they'll be a good team this year. So we'll wait for that till we get him back on. But yeah, good night at Mullet. Good night all around. And I was checking in at the end. I got to catch, based on the time change here, I was able to catch the first couple periods of the Sens Devils game. Watched the third this morning, and Oilers game, and watched the third period this morning. It was one of those periods where I probably could have just watched the condensed game because four shots on goal. But the boys were feeling crispy on the power play, and that got the Sens a big win. Now in goal, Joonas Korpisalo played both games this weekend, and I kind of get it. Jacques Martin's rationale after Sunday's win, he says Forsberg was not a viable option against a high-octane Oilers offense. In his last 2 games, Forsberg has allowed 11 goals on 64 shots. That's an .828 save percentage. And Billsy, we've talked a lot about Joonas Korpisalo this season, but especially after you saw the game that he put on Saturday, especially battling through. There are a couple goals, or one of the 2 goals I didn't necessarily love against New Jersey, but what he did to battle through, especially in that third period and battle down the hatchet, I think he deserved the start, and he made the coach look even smarter with his performance.
Yeah, and one thing that kind of hit me is we know Jacques Martin, he's a guy that likes to look, how does a goalie do up against an opponent team, right? Like, what is his record up against his team? Now, this is where it gets interesting because Korpisalo, he's seen the Oilers a lot recently. He was the goalie in the LA Kings playoff series up against them last season, but it didn't necessarily go well for him. So it's interesting that, well, I mean, mixed results, I guess you should say. So interesting that
games 5 and 6 were tough,
but I think he was solid. The first game 1 and 2, I think he was pretty good, if I remember correctly.
I got you right here. Yeah, in games 1 and 3, he was unreal. Made 37 and 38 saves. They won both those games. Game 4, 881, game 5, 789, and game 6, 808.
Yeah, so this is the duality of Joonas Korpisalo, as we're finding out. And it's interesting that he gets back-to-back starts here and that he's going to get probably more opportunities here as he's outplayed Anton Forsberg recently. But Ross, I don't know if you have another thing to say here before we dive into a friend of the show, Ian Mendez' article on The Athletic. If you guys aren't subscribing already, honestly, Ian's articles are worth the price of subscription on its own. So I want to get into that article unless you got something else to chime in here, Ross.
I'm just curious how they're going to break up the starts going forward for the rest of the year, because I know they've got another back-to-back coming up. But beyond that, and even still, they've proven maybe they don't just rely on back-to-backs anymore to start both goalies. But you got to think at least either at Buffalo on Wednesday or against Chicago at home on Thursday, you probably use Forsberg in one of those games.
Yeah, I would probably put him up against Buffalo, Ross, just so he's not stewing on those last 2 losses too much, and give Korpi an extra day of rest there. That's what I would do.
That's the last back-to-back until the final 2 games of the season at New York, at Boston, April 15th, 16th. So, I mean, you can really run Korpisalo, and maybe this is kind of like one of the factors of whether or not you're going to buy out Korpisalo is how he does over an extended period of time. He's already played his career high in games played in a season. He's hit 46 games played. Last year was his previous high at 39. So, is this kind of like, hey, I hope he's not going to be the 1A starter next year, despite maybe what the cap hit would tell you, but maybe this is kind of a last-ditch effort to see if Korpisalo can string good games together. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself into it. I probably just buy him out. That's what I would do in that situation, but it's easier said than done to have 8 years on the books.
So, and this is why it's interesting, Ross. This begs the question. Comment. Let us know, everyone listening, watching. Does Joonas Korpisalo's remaining games have an opportunity to sway your opinion on how the Ottawa Senators should approach him in the offseason?
Great question. I'll get Pilsey's answer on that, and we'll discuss Ian Mendez' article, Belleville, tough weekend. Can they bounce back? That's all next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Sleeper. It's almost the end of the Ottawa Senators season, and regardless of where they are in the current standings, I want to remind you guys that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, especially when it comes to daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. And if you want to dabble in some other sports, not just hockey, they got you. You can play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, and college football. And I love the Sleeper app because they got a group chat. You can let your buddies know you got a big week coming ahead of you. Entries can be made in less than a minute, so you're racing home before work, before puck drop. You still got lots of time. And all you got to do is pick whether studs like Drake Batherson, who's been lighting up recently, Tim Stutzle, Jacob Chikrin, Joonas Korpisalo. All those guys had hot weekends, and you could have won big if you picked them for stats like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Check it out today, guys. Sleeper.
All right, welcome back, Locked On Senators. You can follow the show on social media at Sens Central on Twitter, lockedon.senators on Instagram. Please go, if you're listening on Apple, and scroll down, write a quick review. You can put Zoob, you can put whatever you'd like. 5-star reviews do go a long way to helping the show grow. You can also rate us 5 stars on Spotify. And please consider subscribing on YouTube. Steal your friend's phone, your parents' phone, your significant other's phone, and make sure you're subscribed over at Locked On Senators. All right, Pillsy. So what is your answer? Joonas Korpisalo, can he sway your opinion of whether or not you're going to move on from him based on these final 12 games?
Well, Ross, I'm going to do a bit of a tease here myself. I'm going to hold my answer till after
12 games?
I display some information here, and I already referenced Ian Mendez' article. So these stats were eye-popping to me, so it bears repeating. Again, this is from Mendez' article in The Athletic. In the 21 starts in which he's posted a 900 or better save percentage this year, 900 or better this season, rather, the Sens are 16-3-2. 16-3-2 when they get 900 save percentage or better from Korpisalo. In games where his save percentage is below 900, the Sens are 1-17-2. The only victory was a 5-4 win over the San Jose Sharks. Now, just to kind of average it out a little bit better, Ross.
I missed Tarasenko. Scored the game winner in that game with 3 seconds left.
We all do. But put in another way, in his 17 wins, Korpisalo has a .928 save percentage and a 2.07 goals against average. Like, if Korpisalo, obviously that's tough to do, those numbers. But if he could find a middle ground and just get to like 910 and 250 goals against, imagine where this team would be. It would be, at the very least, in the hunt for the wild card, at the very least. So I really think, Ross, that the Sens management, I know a lot of people have been looking at the Korpisalo buyout. Hand up. I have also done that. He's been frustrating at points this season. But I really think with just how big of a ticket he has 4 more years after this at $4 million, buying him out now, like, that buyout goes on
8 years.
8
But
years.
It's basically the equivalent for most of it. I mean, you get a credit for the first year, but it's mostly like one entry-level contract. A little bit more. I think it's 1.8 for the majority of it.
Well, so it's I don't see a credit, Ross. I see 333 cap hit.
Yeah.
Isn't very much. 833, then 1.8, 2.3, and then 1.33333 for 1, 2, 3, 4 years. So that buyout wouldn't end until 2031-32. I think if you're Sens management, you got to give it one more try. With Korpisalo, you have to, just because the contract is so long, you're not going to be able to trade it. The buyout is enormous. And I know Sens fans probably are smashing the steering wheel or driving their car off the road or screaming, saying, Pillsy, he's literally one of the worst goalies in the entire league. How could you entertain keeping him? Those stats that we just read from Ian Mendez makes me think that he's going to be able to at least find some middle ground here. And if you want to buy him out next year, then
I've got that number. Exactly. Well. Not that we're going to inundate everyone with a lot of numbers, but basically you're paying him $722 the 2 years from now. Then it goes to 1.7, then 2.2, and then it would be 3 years at 1.2.
Yeah, so it's a little more manageable, and at least you've given him that chance there. I think what the Sens are going to end up doing, Ross, is getting away from Anton Forsberg, whether that's a trade or even maybe buying him out, which that buyout would obviously be very minimal. It's just 2 years where you're paying him like $900,000.
Yep.
And then trying to find one of those guys that you can pay $1 million, your Scott Wedgwoods, your Alex Lyons, that can hopefully clean things up, Stolares, one of those guys, and you hope Korpisalo can find it here. And if that doesn't work, then you go for something major to try to acquire a goalie. Now, do I think, before people get nuts on me here, do I think that's the best ideal solution? No. But sometimes your hands are tied. The Sens don't have a lot of assets to try to make a major splash and trade for a big ticket goalie. So that's going to be tough. You have the Korpisalo contract you're going to have to either trade away, buy out, or just manage. That's not going to be easy either if you want to get a big goalie. So as much as it pains me to say, I think management, and I think what's going to happen is they're going to have to give Korpisalo at least one more year to try to turn this around.
Let us know in the comments what you think. Should Korpisalo get one more opportunity, or have you seen enough through his first 46 games as a member of the Ottawa Senators? It is, of course, 41 starts because, Forsberg's been pulled 5 separate times this season. Just has not been a good year. He's had spurts. That's the problem with Forsberg. You see spurts of what he could be and what he has been before the major knee injuries, but an .885 save percentage in 25 games. I mean, that's just not going to cut it. Not that Korpisalo's been much better, but it might come down to what's easier to move, exactly. As unfortunate as that sounds. Pilsy, before we get to Belleville, kind of a good way to get there. Chance, I'm sure you and Martian talked about it on the postcast last night. Angus crookshank can rip the pill. What a goal, man. He goes up and plays on that line with Tim Stutzle and Claude Giroux, and man, he looked awesome up there.
Yeah, I'm so glad he was the guy that was given that opportunity, Ross, because as Jacques Martin said, tried Ridley there, wasn't sustainable. Tried Joseph there, it simply wasn't working out. He's like, I got Parker Kelly in my top 6. I know Parker Kelly's not a top 6 guy, but we don't have any other options. So they bring Crooker up and they put him in that spot, and I thought he did a very good job up against New Jersey. Wasn't as noticeable next game up against the Oilers, but it certainly wasn't a liability by any means. But that's what I was saying to people on the postcast, Ross. If you haven't followed Angus Crookshank's career, especially in Belleville, you might not be aware of how offensively gifted he is. He showed everyone right there how he can be a player that puts the puck in the back of the net.
But that might have been the furthest he scored a goal from the crease this year. Like, he's always honestly, right in the mixer. So to see him be able to put kind of an awkward pass, it was a nice one from Shabbat, but a bit awkward being a left shot trying to go across his body. Yeah. And he put that right upstairs. So shout out to Crooker. Back-to-back games, sets career high. Well, played 13:52, which was a career high in ice time against New Jersey, and then 13:30, which is the second most he's played in his now 9 National Hockey League games. So shout out to Crooker there. But Billsy, it's a bit of a dilemma because I agree. I think you keep Crooker up. You keep him. He's 24 years old, right?
See
like
what
you want him, and you want him to like you saw it with the Stapchuk. We see it with guys where the first 2 games you're playing on adrenaline. It's the grind of the NHL, which is why I think Ridley Gregg next year is going to be much more consistent because he's going to have gone through the ebbs and flows of a season. But I'm in this like kind of middle ground because I think that the right move for the player is to keep him up. But if Belleville misses the playoffs, Pillsy, like if they miss the playoffs, I might, to quote Pierre Dorion, I might go crazy. I might actually go crazy because there's no way that a team with as much talent and as much money, think about back in September, we talked about all the $100,000 players that they're adding to Belleville, the Pilons, I don't have to go through the list, the guys who are Matthew Highmores and Moko Imamas,
Curry,
guys. Hetherington's making $350,000. They've got goaltenders that are legit prospects and who have played well for them, getting 1 point against Laval. And then Laval got 6 points this weekend. Laval now has the last playoff spot. The next weekend, 2 games, Laval, Belleville. I mean,
and both on the road, Ross.
You can't, and that's a tough barn to play in. You and I
know that. Yep.
That's the season for Belleville. Welcome to pro hockey, Stephen Halliday. We expect him to be in the lineup next Friday.
Hell yeah.
I mean, Laval added the 5th overall pick from the last year's draft.
Who?
And David Reinbacher. Reinbacher? So, hey, they need to figure it out because I'm not having another year where the Sens at both levels miss the playoffs.
No, we can't. We can't do it, Ross. We can't. But yeah, I'm with you. It's a dilemma. I want to keep Crooker up because he's playing well and you want to see what you got from him. But man, he's such an integral part of that team down in Belleville, not just on the ice, but off the ice as well. So that's really tough. And David Bell, that's a major part of your roster that you're going to have to find a way to work around now. Obviously, Stephen Halliday coming in, Disher is going to be feeding Igor Sokolov the puck. So hopefully that'll get Sokolov to be able to continue to roll as he's been hot lately. But yeah, Ross.
No, hasn't been hot. This Jamison Reese guy we're all excited about.
Yeah.
Not that he's the reason why they're faltering, but he's 0 points, -3 in 4 games.
Yeah, I mean, mind you, this has been a big change for him, and he's barely got any ice time all year, so he's probably a little rusty. But
Bon Giovanni has figured it out. He's got 2 tucks in 4 games, +5.
Yep, you love to see that. Your guy from the Manitoba Moose.
Dude,
but
did you see the giveaway from Yuri Smakal that what ended up being the game-winning goal? He's on the wall.
No.
He has about 5 seconds to decide what he wants to do with it, and decides to put it right on the guy's stick who's crashing up the middle. I've never seen anything like it.
And that's tough for us because Smakal is probably one of those guys that David Bell wants to lean on as a veteran guy that has pro experience. So you can't be making mistakes like that. That's a tough look for sure. But neither goalie was able to really put things away here, Ross, as Mads actually got pulled in the Saturday game up against Laval, and then on Sunday up against the Hartford Wolfpack. Although can't really blame Maryline here, 29 saves and 32 shots, but the offense just wasn't able to get things going. As you mentioned, it was Bon Giovanni, the only guy that gets a goal there. So it's tough looking at this, but we shouldn't be so doom and gloom, Ross. Belleville is now only 1 or 2 points out of that playoff spot. They have a game in hand on Laval, who's ahead of them. And then the Marlies, they've got a couple games in hand, or 1 game in hand on Belleville, but they're up 3 points. So there is really 3 spots that Belleville still has a chance to sneak in here. But
2.
This weekend,
they're not getting up to Rochester.
I don't know. I don't think it would be that crazy. Like it depends how this goes. I mean, maybe that's a stretch, but it's possible. This weekend up against Laval is
the
like
season.
You mentioned, this will define the season here. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Belleville Senators do, because you'd like for one of those games to be at home, so you're not playing in Laval, because that
would they though? They just went 0-2-1 at home in their last 3 games this weekend.
Yeah, so I'm not so much saying, Ross, that the CAA arena is a massive home advantage. I just think Laval having both games back-to-back, no travel there, is a massive advantage for them. So I'm stressed. I'm stressed.
We're going right to the meaningful games, Billsy. Meaningful games in Belleville. They're only meaningful if they're able to get some victories down the stretch. All right, Billsy, any final thoughts on today's show? Tomorrow, I want to look into some milestones, because we got to get some sort of positivity train rolling here. And the Sens play Wednesday, Thursday this week. So I think tomorrow will be a good time to, look into some certain players, who's close to a career best single season, and what else are we looking for down the stretch. But for today, after back-to-back wins, you got any final thoughts on a victory Monday?
Yes, final thoughts for me is, I already mentioned Ian Mendez, friend of the show, article on The Athletic. Well, another hashtag friend of the show from The Athletic, Scott Wheeler, just put out his mid-season prospect rankings. And
you want to talk about them tomorrow?
That definitely, we're going to get into that sometime this week. Okay. But Sens fans, if you're feeling sad and you don't know what you're doing with your fandom with this team, I know it's the same thing every year. Get excited for the draft, but I am very excited for this draft, and there are a handful of really talented players that could really help this Ottawa Senators team out. Go check out Scott Wheeler's article. For my money, nobody does it better than Scott. We always have him on the show. His insight is incredible, so check out that article.
Also, Boston struggling, lost 2 in a row, and Ottawa will hold their first round pick by all accounts. And
probably. Yep.
Florida has a game in hand and are now tied with them. And now, in terms of the league standings, Boston, there's 1 point separates 1 through 7. 1 point. But today, Boston wakes up in 7th place in the NHL. So the
Wow,
lower they drop,
crazy.
the higher potential, and obviously playoffs will have something to do with that as well, but that this Senators pick could be. So just things to keep our eye on, because hope is eternal, and we will continue to provide that here on LOSP every single day. All right, expect some later drops like this one here this week. I'm obviously on Pacific time zone, basically, so 3 hours earlier. So we're going to record 9 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow, so expect the episode out maybe 3 p.m. in time for your commute home in Ottawa. And hey, we're excited. We'll have boots on the ground in Ottawa in just 2 weeks' time. For today, though, we say goodbye. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.